Welcome back to this series on Aristotle's theory of knowledge. In the last episode, we discussed the first kind of knowledge that Aristotle speaks of, that is, basic truths or first principles. The second kind of knowledge that Aristotle speaks of is of scientific or demonstrative truth. Demonstrative truths follow directly from given premises and are certain insofar as the premises they follow from are true. They can be found through a process called deductive reasoning, or simply deduction. Deduction is the opposite of induction and operates the opposite way. Where induction ascends from particular observations to universal truths, deduction descends from universal truths in order to tell us more about particulars. In this way, the demonstrative truths that deduction gives us are more practical than first principles. The process of deduction manifests itself in the logical tool Aristotle calls syllogism. A syllogism can be defined as, quote, a discourse in which certain things being stated, something other than what is stated follows of necessity of their being so. The basic form of a syllogism has two premises and a conclusion, with the conclusion affirming that which follows from the premises. To use a common example, premise 1, all men are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is a man. Conclusion, Socrates is mortal. For the conclusion of a syllogism to be demonstrative, two conditions must be met. Firstly, the premises must either be first principles or be deduced from first principles. Secondly, the conclusion must actually follow from the premises. Both criteria are met in our example. The premises are first principles because they could not be otherwise, and the conclusion does indeed follow. If it were somehow possible for a man to be non-mortal, the conclusion of this syllogism would be false and not demonstrative truth. Thus, we see the intimate connection between first principles and demonstrative truth. The latter can never exist without the former. Aristotle's empiricist system leads him to a different answer to the paradox posed in Plato's Meno. He rejects Plato's theory of recollection, since it seems impossible to Aristotle that, quote, we possess apprehensions more accurate than demonstration and fail to notice them. Yet, he still recognizes that first principles could never be recognized if we did not have any ideas about where to look for them. Aristotle concludes that, quote, we must possess an inborn capacity of some sort, but not such as to rank higher in accuracy than these developed states of true knowledge. Our innate faculties do exist for Aristotle, but only to point us in the right direction. It is the evidence of the senses which does the heavy lifting. Thus, quote, states of knowledge are neither innate in a determinate form, nor developed from other higher states of knowledge, but from sense perception. So, to sum up, the main thrust of Aristotle's epistemology is that knowledge is gained through induction of sense perception to universal first principles, and then, by deduction, to demonstrative knowledge via syllogism. As mentioned before, this system contrasts nicely with Plato's. Whereas Plato thought knowledge to be innate, Aristotle argued that our inborn faculties merely enable us to look for knowledge and no more. Where Plato believed knowledge to be emanating from the incorporeal world of the forms, Aristotle thought that knowledge lies in the material here and now. Where Plato saw truth as accessible mainly through rational introspection, or dialectic, Aristotle searched for truth in the evidence of the senses. He is what we would now call an empiricist. That concludes this short series on Aristotle's theory of knowledge. For more content like this, please consider checking out my YouTube channel.